Today I'm going to work on making up a batch of compost tea. I'll show you how I do it and then I'll take you along while I feed it to my plants and give you an update on the garden. I am using what's called secondary water here in Utah. That's water typically used for irrigation that comes from a local reservoir. It's not treated the same way that your drinking water is, so I'm fine with just using it as is. If you're using drinking water, your tap water, you may want to let the water sit out for 24 hours for the chlorine to dissipate and then use it then. That chlorine disrupts all the wonderful goodness that you're trying to create in that compost tea. Now, I am no expert in this. Some people say that just leaving the water out really doesn't do enough and you have to add chemicals. So I suggest you do your own research and do what you're comfortable and you feel like is the best thing. Okay, I filled up my bucket and now I'm going to add compost to this. This is just a 5-gallon paint strainer. So I'm going to add compost to about here. I need to leave enough space that I can tie a knot in this, and I'll tie a knot around the handle, and that's what's going to keep it in place. And I'm also going to add a little bit of this worm castings. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. Okay, so I've got my compost here. It's not totally 100% broken down. It's kind of tough to get to the bottom of my compost box and get the really broken down stuff, but I did the best I could. It's totally fine. So I'm going to put this in the bucket and tie a knot around the bag around the handle. Next, I'm going to add some molasses to the compost tea. Anywhere from about a tablespoon to a 1/4 cup should be good. I don't measure, I just eyeball it, but the molasses provides a food source for the beneficial microorganisms in the compost tea. So that seems about good for me. Okay, so I'm going to now move this whole setup over to where I can plug in the pump. So I'm just using a cheap aquarium pump. I bought this from Amazon years ago. You can get one for anywhere from about 10 to 20 bucks. And you're just going to drop the air stone into the bucket just like that, and then plug this in and let it run overnight. I actually have to go grab an extension cord to plug this in, so I'm going to go do that now. Okay, I got the pump plugged in and this is what it looks like when it's just bubbling away. So I'm going to let this sit here for about 24 hours doing its magic beneficial microbe thing, and I will bring you back in 24 hours and show you what it looks like. Okay, it's the next evening. This has been bubbling away and look at this. This looks kind of crazy. So I'm going to turn the pump off. I'm going to take the stone out. I'm going to take the bag out and I just spread this compost throughout the garden beds. And then I've got a scoop here. This is what I use to scoop out the tea and feed my plants. So I'm going to take you along for that. It's about the second week of May and I'll be honest, I'm feeling kind of behind in the garden. So this bed here, these are my herbs. I've got a couple basil plants, cilantro, and dill. And I put a ton of flower seeds here. I just did direct sow. Hardly anything has come up. A lot of my herbs, my basil in particular, hasn't really grown very much. The cilantro also looks kind of stunted. The dill looks okay, but I'm kind of worried I'm just not gonna have my tomatoes and everything else for making salsa or my cucumbers for making pickles. So I'm not really sure why, but overall I definitely feel behind in the garden, and that definitely shows in this bed here, but I'm hoping giving this little boost to the soil will help. Moving on to my melons and zucchini, it's kind of the same story here. The plants are kind of stunted. Now I've only put these out probably about 3 weeks ago, so I know a lot of people say that melons and zucchini like to be direct sowed, and that if you do start them inside and then transplant them, that they are going to go through a little bit of a shock period, and that you would have been better off just sowing them outside directly. But I just have a hard time getting seeds to germinate. We don't experience a lot of rain here, so that's why I start them inside. And I'm hoping these plants will bounce back soon. Next, I'm going to provide some tea to my huckleberry plants. I don't have a real sense of how well these plants are doing because I've never grown them before. I don't really know how big they're supposed to get. In general, they do look kind of small, I do have one plant that looks like it's doing okay and it might even be fruiting, but hopefully I can get some berries out of these plants. I think it'll be really cool. Okay, I feel like I'm probably going to start sounding like a broken record here. But next are my cucumbers. These also look pretty sad. Cucumbers, they're kind of in the same boat with the zucchini and melons where they may have been better off just direct sowed outside. One plant on the left looks a lot better than the one on the right. But I'm actually going to come out here and spray with some soapy water in case there's spider mites. But yeah, I'm hoping these can take off soon because these are definitely behind compared to last year. My loofah is on the far left, and that's what I was feeding. At this point, I do worry that the season isn't long enough for them to really take off and mature. But after I applied some fertilizer and did this compost tea, they actually started growing pretty aggressively. So I'm hoping that they're going to start climbing that trellis soon. Next up are my peppers. My peppers are kind of a mixed bag. Some are doing really good and some doing not so great. I do have some peppers growing, so I'm going to show you what I have coming in after I give a little douse of tea to all of them here. I have a corbachi pepper growing. This pepper grows so early in the season, so that's why I wanted to plant it this year. It's not a very big pepper, it's not a lot of meat on there, but it's interesting looking and I get them early. And then I've got a jalapeno pepper here and I've got a sweet pepper way over here. I've got a little bell pepper. So I do have some things coming in. The tomatoes in this bed are actually doing pretty good. The cherry tomatoes, it took a week or two before they perked up and looked like they were going to come around, but now they look a lot happier and they're starting to get tall enough that I can clip them to the trellis. The two in the middle, especially that one on the left, is doing really good. It already has a handful of tomatoes on there, so that's pretty exciting. I still just feel overall like I am behind compared to last year. But I have to remember I did start my plants a little bit later this year because in last year, the year before, my plants got so big inside. So yeah, look at these. These already have a handful of tomatoes, so that's really cool to see. In this bed are my paste tomatoes and one cherry tomato. The cherry tomato is doing okay now. My paste tomatoes I feel behind. I think they're doing okay. I actually do have one tomato on the plant on the left right now, but yeah, I just feel so behind compared to last year. I'm sorry, sounding like a broken record, but if you are also feeling behind in your garden, just know that you're not alone. If life happened or things just aren't taking off like the way you're hoping, just know that there is plenty of time still ahead and you're not alone and things will probably get better. So here's my one little tomato on here. It's so cute. Okay, next I'm gonna feed my tomatillos. My tomatillo plants were looking sad when I first put them in the ground, but they're looking a lot better now. Even now as I'm looking at this video, it's a couple weeks old, they're looking even better than this. So I'm pretty excited. I'm crossing my fingers that I can make some salsa verde. Next are my onions. My onions kind of feel like a huge failure. I don't know why, but I have not been able to grow onions in these garden beds. This is my second year. Last year, I only put them on the outsides of the beds, so this year I decided to devote a whole bed to them, which I was worried about regretting in case I didn't have success with them, but I thought I could devote more time to them, more care, and the proper nutrition if they have their own bed. They're just not growing very well. I don't think they've grown hardly at all since I put them in. And I did put in blood meal, which is a high nitrogen fertilizer, which I thought was important for onions. But for some reason, they're just not growing very well. And a lot of them are doing this really weird thing where it's like the inside is growing out. And I'll show you what I mean in a second here when I'm done here. But I don't know what's going on with that, but it just seems like I'm not going to get onions. Okay, here's a closer look. So see how the onions are just like coming out the side? And then some of them kind of look like bugs are eating them. There are so many that this is happening to. If you have any idea what this is, feel free to leave me a comment. I have no clue what's going on, but it's kind of a bummer to see so many have this. Lastly, I'm going to give a dose of tea to everything in my green stock. This is where I put my extra plants. I've got a handful of peppers that are actually doing pretty well, and I even have a couple of peppers growing. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that they get their own little bit of tea. Okay, everything has gotten one little dose of compost tea, so I've got a ton of extra left, so I'm just going to go around and give a second dose, especially to the plants that really look like they can use it. I'm no expert in like how much tea the plants need. I don't feel like you can do too much. This is full of beneficial microbes that help with the soil. If anything, I personally am probably not using enough, but I'm just doing what feels right, what feels good. I go off vibes and feels when it comes to gardening. I don't usually measure. I mean, sometimes I do, but you know, it's not about perfection here. So I'm just going around and trying to use up the rest of my compost tea. Thanks for joining me in the garden today. I know I still have plenty of time for my plants to grow and mature, so I look forward to be able to harvest from my plants, and I will bring you along when I get the chance to do that. Thanks again.